guys, it's time for a Tuesday tip. This time it's about finding inflammation because weirdly, it's not always that easy. So on blood labs, there are a few different inflammatory markers. Erythrocyte sedimentation rate, or ESR, is actually like how quickly your blood will fall to the bottom of a test tube, how quickly the red blood cells and the platelets and things like that will coagulate at the bottom of a test tube. And that is a measure of inflammation, right? Because basically the more inflamed your blood is, the stickier it becomes. So ESR is one of the things they use to test inflammation. C-reactive protein, CRP. That's another one that they use to test inflammation specifically relating to the heart and cardiovascular system. And then there's also high sensitivity, CRP, which is a little bit higher sensitivity. There's also fibrinogen, which is emerging as a more commonly used therapeutic measure of inflammation, and homocysteine, which we're all highly familiar with, right? This one is also, homocysteine is considered to be an inflammatory protein. So any of these can be considered signs of inflammation. The most commonly used are ESR, or SED rate, and CRP. But lots of people have inflammation who don't have high levels of those markers, those inflammatory markers. So obviously we've got a long ways to go before we really understand measuring inflammation and really understand inflammation as a process in general. So one of the other things you can look for are symptoms of inflammation. Pain, any kind of chronic pain, is inflammatory, right? Is an indication of inflammation. So the pain itself can be inflammatory, but is usually a consequence of the inflammation. Redness, right? So any sort of rashiness, any sort of areas that erupt or show up as red patches, that's inflammation. Swelling, inflammation, right? Swelling's always inflammation. So if you're like me and you know you ate something that bothered you because you get all puffy, that's inflammation. Yay. Also decreased function, right? So if you find like stiffness, right? Inability to move certain joints, or decreased ability to move those joints, or decreased mobility in general, that is also inflammation. Any of these can be used as signs of inflammation, and also you can kind of presume inflammation based on the stressors in your life, right? So lack of sleep produces inflammation. High stress levels produce inflammation. Basically anything in your bucket, right? Anything that disturbs your balance or equilibrium ultimately leads to inflammation. So inflammation is one of those weird ones where, you know, it's this very general sign that something's really wrong. It's a sign of injury or response to injury. It's a sign of insult or response to insult, pathogens, anything that your body doesn't like, right? So inflammation, that's this week's Tuesday's tip.